Verbs with infinitive. So what is an infinitive? It's the verb before it's conjugated. And you remember sometimes I talk about an infinitive as if it's the verb before we unpack it. It's the verb in its little suitcase. Let me get a little pen here. It's the verb in its little suitcase before we unpack it, before we conjugate it. Yeah? Suitcases. Here's some examples. Regarder. It means to look at. Regarder, to look at. And remember in English, infinitives begin with to dance, to sing, to walk, to talk. They're all infinitives. They're all the verb before we've unpacked them. So regarder is an ER verb, isn't it? And it's an infinitive. Here's an IR one, finir. IR verbs, and that one means to finish. And vendre is another infinitive. That's an RE infinitive, and it means to sell. If you have a little look at these, ER, IR, RE, and even irregular verbs, they all have an R in them. So the infinitive of a verb will have an R in it somewhere. Okay, and remember that it's the verb before it's conjugated, before it's unpacked into all its infinite possibilities. So if you want to talk about what you like to do, we can use the following construction. Subject, and you know a subject is I, you, he, she, it, Mrs. Dupont. We use the present tense of aimer, so we conjugate it into the present tense, and we add an infinitive. And we know now that an infinitive has got a little R in it somewhere, and it might be an ER or an RE or an IR, or it might be an irregular one. And so it'll look something like this. J'aime regarder la télévision. I like to watch television. J'aime. Now we've conjugated the present tense of aimer. We've got our subject, I, and we've got the present tense, I watch, I watch. J'aime. It could also be I do watch or I am watching, because remember in English we have 3 present tenses but only 1 in French. So there's our present tense. Here is our infinitive. I'm going to put it in its little suitcase. J'aime regarder la télévision. And just as in English, I like to watch television. But it can also sometimes be in English, I like watching television. So watching, sometimes when it means that act of watching, is going to be translated by an infinitive. This is how the construction works in French. I don't want you to get too confused by this. I like watching television. J'aime regarder la télévision. Subject, and we've conjugated it with the present tense of aimer, infinitive, and the rest of the sentence. Here's another one. Tu aimes finir les devoirs. You like to finish homework, or you like finishing homework. So we've got our conjugated verb here, and then the next one is in the infinitive. Il aime vendre les chocolats. He likes selling chocolates, or he likes to sell chocolates. So we've got our conjugated verb, il aime. We've conjugated aimer to go with il, the correct form. Remember that with tu we had the es, and with the il we know we've got the e. We've conjugated aimer to go with il, and then we add the infinitive. Il aime vendre les chocolats. So it's pretty easy. You just take the subject and the present tense of aimer and you add the infinitive. If we want to talk about what we don't like to do, we simply add the ne and pas around the conjugated verb, just as we're used to doing when we sandwich the verb with the ne and the pas. So that we'll have the subject, like je, we'll have the ne, the present tense of aimer, and then the pas, and then the infinitive. So here's an example. Je n'aime pas regarder la télévision. In our previous example, it was j'aime regarder la télévision, but now it's je n'aime pas regarder la télévision. We know that the ne and the pas are like pieces of bread that sandwich the verb, or they're like a bridge, and then we've got our little infinitive after that, okay? So they sandwich the conjugated verb. This one's conjugated. This one's not conjugated, remember? It's an infinitive. It's packed up in the suitcase before it's been conjugated. Again, tu n'aimes pas finir les devoirs. You don't like finishing homework. Tu n'aimes pas finir les devoirs. So we've got the ne and the pas sandwiching our conjugated verb, and then we have our infinitive. Tu n'aimes pas finir les devoirs. Il n'aime pas vendre les chocolats. He doesn't like selling chocolates. Il n'aime pas. We've got the ne and the pas sandwiching the conjugated verb, and then we have our infinitive. So you need to remember, we only have one conjugated verb per subject. Now don't worry, if that seems a little bit tricky to comprehend, don't worry about it now. It'll make sense later on. But just think of it as, well, if it's I like doing something, j'aime, and then the next bit is in the infinitive. It's still packed up in its suitcase. And we can use this construction with lots of other verbs too. Here are some examples. J'adore. Look, they've got adorer, to adore. J'adore regarder la télévision. I adore watching television. Tu détestes finir les devoirs. You hate, you detest finishing homework. Okay, so we've got our conjugated verb here, then we've got our infinitive. Right? So j'adore, I love watching or to watch television. You hate finishing or you hate to finish homework. Il préfère vendre les chocolats. He prefers selling chocolates. So préférer, it works with préférer as well. Il préfère, conjugated that. Now we've got our infinitive. Il préfère vendre les chocolats. Nous pouvons sortir ce soir. We can go out this evening. We can go out this evening. Nous pouvons sortir ce soir. Vous voulez être en vacances. We've done it again. Vous voulez, you want to be on holidays. You want to be, here's our infinitive again, être. You want to be on holidays. So we've followed this rule all the way through. We can use it with aimer to say that we like doing something, or we can use it with other verbs like adorer, détester, préférer, pouvoir, and vouloir, as well as others. We just need to remember that we conjugate. In the present tense, we conjugate it. J'aime, j'adore, je déteste, je préfère. And the next thing we do is we add the infinitive of the verb. The next verb, regarder, finir, vendre, sortir, être. You can see they're infinitives. We haven't conjugated them yet. Verbs with infinitives.